Hello and welcome back to the Architectury Multiplatform Modding in Minecraft series. And after we've added tools in the last episode, as you can see, I've added everything we didn't do in the last episode and also the sword, as I explained. All of this is pretty similar to what we did in the last episode. I explained the differences there. If you want to check everything out, see the GitHub link in the description. But today we are going to expand on that and add armor to the game, so that we don't only have a sword of a ruby, but also a full armor. Now, in some ways, armor works relatively identical to the tools we did. Again, the first thing we did last time is add a tag for our repair item, and we're going to do this as well this time, even though we use technically exactly the same item, but Minecraft Vanilla uses two different tags for this, and so I'll also do the two different tags for this simply because I like to stick close to Vanilla's naming schemes so that I find myself well around the vanilla code if I look something up, how something is done in the game itself. Now we name the tag repairs ruby armor, and also back here repairs ruby armor. Again, this is exactly the same as the other tag we defined, just with a different name. So the path where we need to place the file later is also the same. We just need to name the file, then repairs ruby armor. Now, with the tag out of the way, we now get into our armor material. And for this, I'm going to create a new package inside of our items package, call it equipment. And in here, I'm going to create a new class and call this tutorial mod armor materials. Now, in addition to the armor material itself, we need also something else here, because as you know, a tool is just an item in the hand and is rendered with the item texture when held in hand. That's why we need to define the handheld property in the item model file. Armor, on the other hand, when it's worn, is layered on top of the skin and uses a completely different texture for this. And we need to tell the game where to look up the file where we link to those textures. I'll show you later where we need to create the file, but the first thing we need for this is a resource key that defines us the location of said file, and we define it in this way. Let's import the necessary things here, and then I'm going to explain this. So the first thing we define here is the resource key for equipment asset. And equipment asset is, as I said, this file that specifies where the different textures for the different types of armor made from this material are located. In our case, we just add the human armor, but for example, this armor material could also be used for horse armor, but then you again would need a different weapon file, and this would be specified in the same file as the human armor overlay textures. We create this resource key by resource-key.create, and the first thing here is essentially the path where this file is located, and equipment assets.rootid specifies this. For our items, for example, we also needed to create a resource key down here, but there we just referenced the registries, but there is no armor material registry in this sense, so we need to reference this root ID from the equipment assets key here. And the second thing we need here is the resource location, and this again is inside of our mod namespace, so our mod ID here, and then the path is ruby, so that means the file we need to name it later ruby.json. That's the resource key, so let's get on to with the armor material. Public static final armor material a ruby equals new armor material. And now this armor material needs a bunch of parameters. And the first one of this is the durability. Now, I put in here 24, and you may think 24, that seems pretty low, but you need to understand the difference between armor and tools, because for tools we specified the durability that the item will have. So we, for example, said 1000, I believe 1024, let me check. Yeah, 1024 here. That means that every tool has a durability of 1024. For armor, this works slightly different, because each slot has a base durability. And this base durability is then multiplied by the durability we put in here to give us the final durability of each armor item. So a helmet, for example, has slightly less durability than a chest plate, even if they're made from the same material. And this multiplier is this number we put in here. 24 is a middle ground between iron and diamond, as I did with the properties of the tools last week. I'm also going here for something that is around the diamond, but slightly less durable. The next thing we need to put are the so-called defense values, and those essentially state how well the armor protects you from damage. Those are the numbers that you can later also see in game. And for this we put map.off, because we need to create a new map for this. Important here, the Java usual map. And now we need to put in for the different types of armor this material is suitable for the respective values, and those are the ones. These are the same as the diamond armor, so I just copied them. So as you can see, for a helmet we have a 3, chestplate is 8, leggings are 6, and the boots are 3. The next thing we need is again the enchantability, 12, as we did in the last episode for our tools as well. And then we need to specify the sound that is played when the armor is equipped with a right click while held in the hand. And for this we go to sound events, and then we find here, for example, the armor equipped diamond, because ruby and the diamond may sound pretty similar, so we just use the diamond sound. And that's how you specify this. Then we need to specify the toughness, again a value that is also displayed in the game later. And we can also, and the next thing we need to specify is the knockback resistance. All the default vanilla armor, so diamond, iron, etc., have 0 knockback resistance, but if you want to create an armor that resists not knockback, you can put in a higher value here. The last 2 things we need here are, for one, repair material. For this we go to our tutorial mod tags and use the repairs Ruby armor tag here. And the last thing is the resource key we created above, so our Ruby armor material key. And that's how we define our armor material. And now we can go into our items class and create the items for our armor. So I've already prepared the variables up here. Again, similar as to any other item. I'll just show how you do this for the helmet and then copy in the rest. So we say our Ruby helmet and then register item, Ruby helmet, again the name, and then we create this lambda notation as we always do. And now we need a new armor item. So in contrast to the tools, every armor piece has the same item class. It's this armor item class. We don't have a helmet armor item or helmet item or something. We just have an armor item. And the first thing we need to define here is now the armor material. So we define this in our tutorial mod armor materials.ruby. Then we need to specify the armor type. In this case, it's the armor type helmet. And then, as we always do, our base properties for our Ruby helmet. And we also added to a creative mode tab, in this case our tutorial mods tab.tutorial tab. And this is how you create the item in the items class. And if I copy in the rest, as you can see, we always call the armor item here, and then just specify the different armor types back here: helmet, chestplate, leggings, and boots, into the matching variables down over here. So that's everything we need to do in Java. So let's jump over to our resources and start by adding the translations to our armor. And I've already prepared those. Just as always, item.modid. Your item name that you specified here, and then the translation behind that. And the next thing we're going to do is to do the standard things we need to do for all items. So I've already prepared most of those. Those are the JSON files in your items directory here. There's exactly the same as for the Ruby and any other item, similar to the models and then item. Also here we have the similar files as to the Ruby, not with the tools, because but with the tools we put here item handheld. In this case, item generated is completely fine. This is the model that is rendered when the item is in the inventory. And speaking of the item is in the inventory, for this we also need textures, obviously. And those textures I've also prepared. And again, those are just recolored diamond armor pieces. So this is our Ruby chestplate. And that's everything that you would do if you just wanted to add an item. But as I said, we now also need this wrap around texture that is later shown in the game. So for this, we're going in our textures folder and create here a new folder, and we call it entity/equipment. And then we create first a humanoid folder. And in this humanoid folder, we place the upper body part of the texture. Again, this is just the recolored diamond armor texture, but this is essentially the top half of the body. And then we need the bottom half of the body, and for this we also need a new directory, entity, equipment, and then humanoid leggings. And in this directory we place the texture that corresponds with the lower half of our body armor. Again, recolored diamond texture, and this is how it looks like. So here this is the leggings and these are the boots. And now, as I said earlier, we need to tell the game that this texture actually exists. And for this, we are going to create a new directory in our assets tutorial mod folder and call it equipment. And in this equipment folder, we now place the ruby.json file. And this ruby.json file here is the file we specified in our resource key, in our Ruby Armor material key here. So this Ruby corresponds to this file. And in this file, we put the following. We specify the layers, and those are the different layers for this armor material. And we have two layers in this case, the humanoid layer with the texture tutorial mod Ruby, and the humanoid leggings layer with also the same textures. So these two, humanoid leggings and humanoid, correspond to the folders inside the entity equipment folder, and those textures then specify the PNG files inside those directories. So as both of our PNG files are ruby.png, we specify Ruby in both cases here, but those layer identifiers separate those two folders. That is everything we need to do from a texture and model perspective. The last thing, again, similar to the tools, is we need to add the IL Ruby to our tag that we created so that we can repair our armor with that. And for this, I'm just going to copy this Ruby tool materials file from last time and rename it in repairs Ruby armor, because the content is again exactly the same. And that is everything we need to get armor into the game. So let's launch the game and check it out. Now, as you can see, I'm on top of a tree and I have a Ruby armor in my inventory. And as you can see, there are the parameters we specified when we created our armor material. So the helmet has 3 armor and 2 armor toughness, and the chestplate 8 and 2 armor toughness. And the chestplate 8 armor and 2 armor toughness, those are the values we specified inside of the armor material. And now let's put this armor on. And as you can see in the preview here, it renders correctly on our body. And if we press F5, we can also see that the armor renders correctly. And now let's jump down here and hope that this is not enough to damage the armor. Yeah, next thing is to check if we can repair it. And for this, I'm going to let myself be hit by this zombie so that the armor takes some damage. And let's hope that the zombie dies. And now, as you can see, the armor has taken some damage. Here you can also see what I mean with the durability, that all the pieces have different values here. But let's check if we can repair it. Head to the anvil. Oh, should take this off first. Put in the ruby helmet, put in a ruby, and as you can see, we can repair it. Same with the chest plate and the leggings and the boots. And with that, you know now how to add custom armor to the game. And that pretty much is everything related to basic things in the game. So next I'm going to talk a little bit about more complicated things and more advanced things, starting with blocks and block states. And they are starting with rotations of blocks. So for example, a furnace can face in different ways, or a piston, and I'll show you how to do this in the game. See you then, goodbye.